Disclaimer. Any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do. 3 things I learned about money in 2025. I'm going to share these with you on today's episode. Welcome back to the podcast today, and thank you for joining me. So, what are 3 things that I've learned about money in 2025? I decided to talk about this because I'm in that position where it's been tight and I've had to pay a lot back. And I've been in a place where it's flowed quite well. And I still want to improve my relationship with it, admittedly. But there's some big mentors, big teachers I've learned about money over the years. And in particularly this year, I'd like to reflect back and share what I learned about money with you today, because I know that it can be a struggle for a lot of us. So that's why I made today's episode specifically on this. And I'm making this actually on Christmas Day to catch up. And Christmas can be a time where I found, you may be receiving some things, but there's also that you got to pay for these bills, you got to buy people gifts, trips, all these kind of things. And it can be, I see how it can be stressful in some cases, but stress for me is always how you perceive the situation and deal with it. So, and I know some people don't like to say that. They like to say, well, it's their fault or this fault, or that's always going to be a challenge. You can say that, and that's totally up to you. My invitation would be, how empowering does that make you feel? When you say like, oh, something else is someone else's fault, or that's difficult, I can't do anything about that. When you want the situation to be difficult, it doesn't really feel good for me personally in that instance. So I just want to give a little bit of insight today on, how I've been able to be a bit more empowered with money. And that's something I'm always working on, as always. So these are 3 key takeaways that I want to give to you today. So number 1, energy. I've talked a lot about this on previous episodes around money, and I've dedicated an episode a week at the moment to money. But energy, for me, it may sound a bit woo-woo, spiritual, can you prove it? And for me, for myself, yes, I've proven it. It works. I suggest reading a a Joe Dispenza book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I almost forgotten the name of the book then. But that's a really powerful book. And it talks about, although it's not about money, it talks about atoms and particles and energy, and how your energy, before it's observed, is like all these atoms. It's all energy, right? And then it becomes reality. There's also an experiment called the double slit experiment. Now I'm going to go into these a little bit and what's that got to do with money and energy. And this is still the first point on energy. The double slit experiment is something, decades ago it was done. But it basically showed that when you observe something, that the results change. And when the scientists weren't looking at what was going on with the light going through these blockers, like something completely different was shown. So therefore, that was just one part of suggesting that, and again, look up the science, do your own research, that actually we live in quite a virtual reality kind of world, rather than this materialism approach. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue one way or the other today in a science debate, but I am on the side of the virtual reality, and what that suggests to me and what I've learned from that, and this is just how I've worked it for myself, is that your energy is primary to everything. So if you're feeling good, you're in a loving mood most of the time, you're, in acceptance, your willingness, rather than being in anger, sadness, apathy, then your life's going to be different. Because how you think about things, it's in how they're going to show up in the world. It's an energy. So really focus on your energy on that. And how did I kind of figure that out for myself? Well, I had a great teacher in this area, and he said, write down things that show up in your life. So what I started doing, and I've been doing this for ages now, months and months and months, is when I started writing down what was showing up in my life, good and bad, there was a correlation between when I had good energy, like when I was eating well, or doing good habits, not scrolling too much on social media, or doing bad habits, or drinking too much alcohol. Like when I was doing the good stuff, things would show up more than often. I'd be in flow, and then I'd be in this good energy, and then opportunities would come to me. I would have ideas. Like, you can earn money by having more ideas because you've got good energy. So when the more I wrote that down, the more evidence that actually being in a good energy is primary. That needs to be my focus. It's not about like hustling to exhaustion and feeling miserable, because that's going to significantly block me. And when I found like when I was in the past, like majorly hungover or eating crap or consuming too much crap instead of listening to uplifting stuff, then like negative things would happen. And more often than not, that's not always the case, not 100% of the time. But what that showed to me is energy is key to money. And I noticed, I started observing people in my life who have a lot of money. They have an energy about them. Now, it doesn't mean like every area of their life is necessarily sorted, because you can have a lot of money but have bad relationships, have a lot of money, bad health, right? Or any kind of combination. But what I noticed about the ones when we're talking about money specifically, they had an energy about money where it was, they were calm. They were in this grateful place. They knew money was part of them. They appreciated money and money appreciated them. They had this energy about them. And therefore they'd have ideas like, oh, I've had this new business idea. Suddenly they've got a 20K client or whatever. And that's what I noticed. Whilst other people in that scarcity of like, I'm trying to pay the bills, things are really tight, they had a different type of energy. So work on your energy is a really key one. Now, how do you work on your energy? Take notice of your physical and mental input. To keep this very simple, for energy, look at your physical and mental input and just change one thing for each, or either start something or stop something. So physically, are you eating more? It's not about being perfect. Are you eating healthily more often than not? Are you drinking water more than you're drinking, alcohol or crap soda drinks or whatever? I'm not saying you should never have those things, by the way. It's just dominantly, you want to be, what I'm saying is you want to be taking in the good things. And then, like mentally, are you consuming stuff like, I'm going to call it out again, the news, which is designed to make you fearful? Or are you taking uplifting podcasts or books, things that inspire you, inspirational stories? I was reading a book this morning called The Resilience Mindset by one of my previous podcast guests, Terry Healy. And he's got stories full of inspiration on there of people who've had such adversity, including him, overcame like cancer in his face. And like these people have, and that's like uplifting, that's going into my head. And I'm like, wow, I've got it pretty good. And I'm like, and it's not about me not feeling bad when I need to process emotions, but it's like, wow, what inspiration can I learn from these people? Like an even more positive way of thinking. So that's the first thing. Energy is key. Just so the three things, if you want to keep it simple on this one for energy, is one, look at one thing to change physically in terms of your physical input. Number two, mental input. And then number three is just start logging your results. And this is still the first point. It's like three little bits in the first point, is just start logging your results. Okay, how are you feeling? How is your energy and what showed up in your life in terms of opportunities? And sometimes money is not always directly. Someone gifted me like this present the other day, or program the other day, which was like a 10K thing. And that's like a monetary equivalent for me. I'd been putting a lot of value, I had good energy, and I received that. It was amazing. Number two, consistent action. You need to be doing something to move forward. You can't just be in a place of like, oh, I'm going to feel good and meditate all day, which is a good start, but you actually have to take consistent action. You got to be applying things. Like I was like, oh, it just worked. But when I just turn up, but then like, I would like visualize and having more money and stuff. But then it was like, wow, I'm spending badly. I'm blowing it on stuff. I'm not doing the needle moving activities like having sales conversations or doing as much marketing as possible. That's why money isn't showing up. So actually the second part is physically, you actually have to take consistent action. So what is just one thing you can take consistent action on? And the third thing is really think about giving. And giving can be in multiple forms. I'm going to call this out, and people don't like to hear this, and this will piss some people off. If you're one of those people, I'm going to say it out of love, and I've realized this because I've been guilty of it in the past. If you're one of those people who listens to stuff, everything for free, that's not a bad thing. Like if you're consuming podcasts, all these kind of things, but then you want to get things as cheap as possible, as free as possible. You're always asking for stuff from people, and you're like, why am I not getting more money? Have a hint. It's about giving as well. I've noticed when I've invested, even when you invest in yourself, even the small amount, that is giving to someone else. And I'm not saying go out there and smack everything on your credit card. No, of course, listen to things like this podcast as a foundation. Listen to things that lift you up. But if you're like constantly just trying to get everything now and everything for free, and you're wondering why nothing's coming back to you in return, Take a wild guess, right? You need to be a giver as well. And that could be donations, that could be donations, that could be like paying for something, that could be your time to someone, that could be giving your energy to something. Like, just think about giving, because when I give, the more I receive. Now, for example, and one thing I'll say, like, I do a lot of free content, right? And the way it's returned to me, and I do it because I enjoy it. Don't be attached to getting something back, especially directly from where you're giving, right? I give a lot of free content. First, I was like, oh, this should show up in my business really quickly. No, it doesn't work like that. I realized opportunities showed up to me in different areas of my life, whether it was a career promotion, whether it was suddenly, oh, I'd like you to come on board the sales team. Like, that like came out completely out of like left field, like out of nowhere, because I realized I was giving so much like value to people, like free value podcasts, all this kind of thing. So if you're just someone who's consuming everything and you're like expecting things to come to you when you're not giving as much value, I'm sorry to call this out, but you need to be more of a giver. And I'm not talking about exhausting yourself. And some people are like, I give, I give, I give. You've obviously got to have a cup filled up as well. And if you feel like you're giving, not getting back, ask yourself, are you really giving? Now, obviously, if you've got a family, you're going to have to, you're going to give to your family and things like that. But also be smart about what you're giving. Are you giving real value, or are you just working hard and not really giving any value? Because unfortunately, some people do that and they don't like to admit it, even though they're working hard. Like, I used to give and give and give into a job where I was just photocopying, doing all these typing things. But at the end of the day, I could be replaced by a machine. That's not really valuable work. So give actual value that people need and want, right? So think about how you can give more generally in life. Ask yourself that every day. How can I give more and enjoy it without expecting something in return? Because when you take the expectation away, that's when things show up. Now, obviously, if you got to pay the bills and stuff, live practically, clock in for a job, you're expecting to get paid, all that kind of thing. But as a general principle, the law of reciprocity, as they call it, if you're giving, it will come back to you in return. Like, sometimes I've given money to the homeless, but I don't go and give money to the homeless and be like, right, giving to the money to the homeless. I'm telling you now, I had a guest on it recently. We're talking about this. I haven't published the episode yet, but it's not about like, here you go, here's money. Now I'm going to post it on social media. Everyone's going to see how an amazing person I am. Right. I've obviously just shared it as an example in this. And then it's not like, oh, well, I've just given money to a homeless person, therefore I expect £10,000 or dollars to land in my bank account very soon from some amazing. No, it doesn't work like that. Just enjoy giving for giving, and you don't need to tell anyone about it. If you, you don't need to be like, oh look, there's a picture of me and this homeless person I'm feeding. Like, that's just like vain, right? Think about how you can give more from a place of enjoyment. Enjoy the gift of giving, and also when someone's going to give to you, receive it, whether it's a compliment or anything. I receive compliments and gifts all the time. Now I'm like, oh, thank you, appreciate that. I'd like to pay for your lunch. People are like, no. I'm not. Oh, thank you very much, I appreciate you. And people enjoy the gift of giving, so you're allowing them to give. When people compliment me, I'm like, oh, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Because if you block off that, you're blocking off things like money as well. If you're blocking off giving, that could have been a 4 point, but I just wanted to share that. So those are 3 key things that I've learned about money in 2025. So number 1, we talked about energy being primary. Make sure you get that sorted. Number 2, consistent action on something. 3, enjoy the gift of giving. Now, what I'm going to suggest is doing at least one of those. Again, if you just listen to me today and go, wow, that was inspirational, you do nothing, is that really going to change your life? Like, unless you've got a program you're operating to help you with this, then I would suggest taking action, because just listening to things and consuming things and then wondering why things are changing, it's kind of the hint there as well, right? You've got to take action on what you're learning as well. So that's what I got for you today. I appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.